Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Face2Face podcast. My name is Victor Duffris. So, we are in an election season, and one of the issues that has been a bone of contention has been an issue to do with Smartmatic as regards to management of these elections. But besides that, we also have had or have heard debates centered on the cause for the resignation of Justice Annabel Ntalimanja, who is MEG chairperson, as well as the Chief Elections Officer, Andrew Mpesi. So, with me here today in this episode, I have a brilliant, renowned legal mind in the name of Z. Allan Ntata. Allan Ntata, welcome to Face to Face.
Thank you very much, Victor.
How are you, sir?
It's a pleasure to be here. I am feeling very good and I am keen to have this conversation.
So let us set our chat rolling. As Malawi heads towards the elections on the 16th of September 2025 to elect the president, members of parliament, as well as ward councillors, I am looking forward to hear your assessment of the or the assessment of the performance of the Malawi Electoral Commission in managing the whole electoral process from registration, voter roll verification, as well as nomination papers presentation. How do you assess the whole process?
It is a complex process, and as we have seen in the past elections, there's always a lot of challenges, and now we are this is now our fifth, maybe sixth election of this kind, maybe, if I'm not mistaken, from 2000, I know, from 1994 until now. I would have thought that. The information about how the Malawi Electoral Commission conducts its work should have been more readily available. Because I believe that a lot of the stuff that you hear comes from a lot of the populace not knowing what the Malawi Electoral Commission does or is doing with regard to any particular election. Yeah, so I feel that the biggest challenge has been, in my view, with regard to the work of the Malawi Electoral Commission, and not just in this election, but in all the other elections, is that there is an information gap between the work of a very, very important body, the Malawi Electoral Commission, with regard to the people's votes, and the people that it is working for, in terms of knowing what are these guys do, what should we expect from them, and so forth. So that creates, where there is no information, there is room for rumor. And so you find now a lot of rumors start coming out. And then the Malawi Electoral Commission, what it does then is it now starts firefighting because it didn't inform people about all sorts of things. And so people start hearing it from leaks, from whatever, and so forth. So in that regard, I don't think that the electoral commissions that we have had, or the Electoral Commission as a body and their chairmen and people that have been working there, have actually addressed that problem. And as a result, we are always going to be having these issues where people are speaking about, oh, the Electoral Commission, this, that. But then at the end of the day, when an election comes, you discover that they have done their work. So for me, I don't believe that there is any particular problem with this particular Electoral Commission as compared, for example, to the Electoral Commission that was being run by Jane Ansah, or another Electoral Commission that was being run by, late Justice Mendera, or whoever. As far as I'm concerned, I think that there's a collective problem which the Electoral Commission needs to address, and this is the fact that they haven't been very good at civically educating Malawians about their work, what they're doing, and all those things that you have spoken about in terms of what they have been doing this particular election. A lot of it has been a question of people raising an issue and then they come and respond, and that's not the way to conduct it.
But we have got instruments in place that are actually funded to conduct civic education.
Yes.
Can we say that they are sleeping on their job, or they have got other areas of interest
This
as
is
regards
a
to
challenge. Yes.
civic education?
Yes, I think the challenge is identifying which areas have got information gaps. You have National Institute for Civic Education, for example. Their job is to civically educate Malawians on all sorts of issues. Have they been approached about the question of the Electoral Commission, for example? I don't think they have. They inform people, they do civic education programs on various things to do with the elections, but most of the time is how do you vote, how do you do this, how do you do that, and the other. But what about, okay, we want to tell you that this is the law regarding elections. Elections are run by this body, and this is what you should expect from it. And when they are conducting elections, check for this. That's the kind of information that so that every citizen in this country should know that, okay, I know what the Malawi election is doing, and I know what they do, and I know that if they're doing this, they're doing it wrong.
So
but instead of just hearing from the grapevine.
yes, Allan Ntata, in my preamble, I did mention an issue to do with opposition political parties calling for the resignation of Meg Chair.
Yes, you did, yeah.
And the resignation of Meg's chief elections officer, okay, citing, that perhaps there could be a possible bias in as far as the management of these elections is concerned. How legitimate are such assumptions or such cause for her resignation or for the resignation of this pair?
Well, I'm a lawyer, so because of that, I cannot deal with rumor. I deal with hard evidence. So for that reason, my response to that question would be that if people have very good evidence of bias, let them bring it out. Because we cannot be basing our speculation on this question on the basis of, oh, but her uncle is this guy, oh, but her father was that one, and so forth. That's just she's a professional, and I think we should trust our professionals to do their job unless we have very, very good reasons that we can bring as facts to say this particular professional has been compromised in this regard. And for me, from that perspective, and I do appreciate that emotions run high and we do speculate a lot on the basis of all sorts of factors. But the truth is that when it comes down to it, if you have a real problem with a specific officer in the Electoral Commission, you have to bring the evidence. Once you do that, then let the law take its course.
Yeah. I also did mention something to do with election management device.
Yes.
In this regard, as supplied by Smartmatic.
Yes, it's been in the news.
It's been in the news. Smartmatic and the whole of the controversies surrounding it, and there are many references that perhaps countries that have adopted this type of election management system, the elections have ended up in chaos. There was rigging. There are claims that have been made by these opposition parties, and of course there was demand by the opposition parties to go and audit the voters' roll. The voters' roll. Would you say that perhaps the transparency of these elections is compromised?
Well, like I have said earlier in the introduction at the top there, that there has been lack of information throughout our democratic dispensation, I believe. And so from that perspective, I would say yes, because, there's so much that people would love to know that they don't know. So you are talking about transparency. The answer is yes. But is it deliberate or is it a system failure? That is the problem. Okay, so when we talk about a lack of transparency, okay, is this something that the chairman and his people, their people said, let's sit down and withhold this information from the people? Or is it simply a question that there is no framework to get the information from the people or to the people? So for me, that's really the challenge that needs to be addressed. We speak about lack of transparency. You're speaking about opposition parties saying, let's go and audit this thing, and so on, speaking all sorts of things. But the point is that, we gotta have a framework for these things. We cannot just be raising them up from the blues. So is there a framework for opposition parties to go and audit? What do the laws say? I don't know about that particular aspect of the law to say that, when the election commission has done their job, the opposition parties should then come and audit that. I've never read that. Maybe it's there, maybe I've missed it, because I'm not necessarily an elections lawyer, so I may not know all the regulations and rules that are there to do with elections, but I've never heard of such a rule. So if it's there, then they are entitled. They should go and get a court order. If the election commission is refusing, get a court order, go and audit the damn thing. If they don't have that particular right, then they're just speaking in the wind. Where do they get that right? And so to me, this is not just a question of just listening to what people are saying. We do that too much in this country. And as a result, the country is going down because we don't use facts. Let's be a fact-oriented nation. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, so in this election, so many rumors. Which rumors need investigating? I am an investigator. I am a very, very good investigator. I can investigate this mathematic and find out whether this mathematic around the world is a positive news or negative news. That's not difficult. I'm a researcher. I can do that. All right. Or you can go and investigate the law and say, okay, let's have a consultant check the laws. Do we have the provisions for it, or should we put provisions for it in Parliament to make sure that this thing should be happening? That's how a country should be run. Now, we're trying to run a country on emotions and feelings and things like this, and that's exactly what is wrong.
Upon the nullification of the 2019 presidential election, we adopted a new election management phenomenon that is fondly called 50+1 system.
Yeah, through the courts.
Yes, yeah. Now, given the current political posture in Malawi, do you see the possibility of an outright winner under the 50+1 electoral system? Are we going to achieve that?
We will never achieve that. And mark my words, okay? Malawi, as if it remains the way it is now in terms of its political space, it will never achieve nobody will ever achieve the 50+1 on the first go.
How did you?
Because Malawi is ethnically divided. Okay, so when we bring in this 50+1 thing, we are basically encouraging, because we encourage our ethnicity. Everyone wants to keep their ethnicity. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so because of that, we get parties have strongholds and all these sort of things. We will never get a 50+1 because everyone will vote for their own party. And you got too many parties. So for me, my forecast is people should start beginning to think very seriously, should begin to think very seriously that we will always be having reruns.
So I wanted you to state out clearly your preference between these two electoral systems. First, past the post type of a system that we have been using since the adoption of the multi-party democracy, and then the new one, the 50+1. What's your preference and why?
For the presidency, I actually... I find this to be a very interesting question. I think I'm going to stay here for a little bit. The reason is because I don't fancy either. I think both of them are not good representation-wise. The 50+1 is good, but with an ethnically divided country like ours, it's always going to find its own complexities. It's okay if you have got a homogeneous ethnical setting, then it's very, in France, for example, everybody is French, everybody is the same tribe. So because of that, they don't have problems. And so you can implement 50+1. You see, one of the arguments that I make in some of the stuff that I write, and I think this one I make in my first book, which was in analyzing political leadership in Africa, is that we are always trying to graft ideas from academics various places around the world. And we want to implement these things here in Africa, in various African countries. And this is a good thing. You learn something that has come from somewhere else and you try to implement it. But when you start speaking about things like democracy, and you start making certain assumptions about things like 50+1, you've messed up a country. For example, elections and democracy in a country like Malawi, if you bring the way we do the first past the post, for example, in my view, that might be better because first past the post means one person will emerge a winner from the beginning, therefore it's cheaper. But as we have seen, you can be the first past the post with 30%.
Which means the majority.
It means that you are governing without the mandate of the 70%.
Yes.
And that again creates a very, very big problem. And so for me, I believe that African countries that have adopted parliamentary systems like South Africa or I think those are better because ultimately the leadership is a question of which party has the most seats in the parliament.
Well, Ntata, let us touch on electoral statistics. So the NSO, or National Statistical Office, projected that by 16th of September 2025, we would have 10.9 million eligible voters. That was the projection. But looking at the stats as it stands, it seems that, not even it seems, but for a fact, we have 7.2 million registered voters.
According to the make record.
Yes, according to the make records. And that represents 65.7% of that total number that was projected by NSO that we would have
for this election.
Yes, for these elections, meaning we have approximately 35% of eligible voters that are not participating in these elections. Yes. So I wanted to get your opinion. What would be the reasons?
Several.
Yes.
I think that obviously there's been a complaint with regard to the timing of the registrations and how they were carried out. I haven't really followed, but I've read a few articles to do with people complaining that, they wanted to get themselves registered. So, and then they weren't, for one reason. So there was a technical issues there. People wanted, like me, I'm an eligible voter, but I didn't register. So there could be things like that. Or unless you're talking about those that had already been registered, I want to be sure.
Okay, now we are
eligible voters in the country,
yes,
as compared to those that are on the make record. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So someone like me, I'm an eligible voter.
Yes.
One reason could be because I didn't get to register with MEC for one reason or another.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Now, but why did people not get to register with MEC? That's the question.
Yes,
that we
that's
need
the
to
question.
pursue.
Yes.
And so that also again depends. For some, it was technical issues, like I've said. But for some, I think there's a growing voter fatigue in Malawi. I'm sure everybody is seeing that. The electorate are feeling that they are being let down every single time they go and vote. And so when you're feeling like that, sometimes you begin to feel that, you have an apathy. You don't care anymore about voting. And so to me, there is an element of that in this election. Even those that have registered, if you ask them, who are you going to vote for? Some of them still don't know up to now, because it's like, I don't know, I don't know what choice, and so forth. So there is that sense of helplessness, of feeling disillusioned about the whole process. And I think for me that probably could be a major factor. But the other factors I think could be technical issues to do with the way the system was done.
So are you seeing, or are you foreseeing possibilities of a voter apathy in these elections?
Yes, I think so. I think probably not. Actually, I would have thought voter apathy was going to happen, but I'm beginning to feel like there is an awakening of a protest vote. So people are going to vote because they are feeling angry about something to do to do with these elections. So now that's not apathy. That is actually turning out. But then the question now is, are they voting with hope, or are they voting with helplessness? That's really, for me, that's the more important question. The apathy, it might not necessarily be apathy, but if people go and vote in this election, are they voting and really believing that things are going to change?
Yeah, no, you did mention that as a country, we sort of exercise ethnic or type of voting in the country. And looking at the statistics, it clearly shows that the central region has got more registrants in these particular elections. And realistically speaking, we know that the stronghold of Malawi Congress Party is the central region.
Yes.
And the Democratic Progressive Party is the southern region. I wanted your honest assessment. If we are to talk about among the top three candidates winning an election, one of them, what's the meaning of these statistics? Having that more registrants are at the center, and MCP is quite strong at the center and then in the south. And mind you, we have got other political parties that are also distributed here in the south. Would you mind, making an interpretation of such data?
Ordinarily, you would expect that. Obviously, that means that the southern vote, which is mostly for the opposition, would be split, while as among those parties, and then of course there are also fewer, like you're saying, and so you would expect, in an ideal world, that advantage the Central Region stronghold party, which is the Malawi Congress Party. But I don't think it's that straightforward. When you look at the numbers, you discover also that Lilongwe is huge, and Lilongwe is urban, and Lilongwe's urbanicity has a lot of people that are not from the Central Region, and so already that splits that myth, because when you look at the voters in Lilongwe, you look at that number of voters in Lilongwe, do not expect that all those voters are MCP votes, because a lot of those people are there to work. A lot of people, Lilongwe is the biggest city in the country. It's got lots of people working there who are interested in voting, and they will probably not vote for MCP. So you don't just assume in that regard. And then there is also the aspect that a genuine voter is not just going to vote simply because it's MCP. No. And if Malawi, that's the problem, and that's the reason why we speak about ethnicity and so on. We are assuming, and that's usually the assumption, that if I come from Cholo, I'll always vote for someone from the south or a party from the south. If I come from the Lomwe stronghold, it should be DPP. If I come from Eastern Region, maybe it should be UDF and things like that. But that actually is what is creating the problems in the country. It's the reason why the country is not moving forward. And so maybe it is time to begin to call for people not just to vote simply because this is your regional party. Vote for somebody who gives you hope. And I believe that in this election, that factor might work. You never know. It works in any election. I remember in the 2009 elections, the DPP in Bingu Mtarika got loads of votes from the Central Region and the Northern Region. So sometimes people do not necessarily vote for their so-called party from their region when they're seeing that the hope lies elsewhere. And so for that reason, you said I should interpret these numbers. For me, you might think, well, this sort of stats favor MCP, but do not take it for granted. That's my answer.
Yes, so there was also an issue to do with Afrobarometer predictions, and as according to the survey, it projected that DPP will come with 43% and MCP 26%, UTM 5%, UDF 1%, and PP 1%. In your independent assessment of these projections, what's your take? Are these realistic projections?
Yes, they are realistic projections, and I was surprised that a lot of people were fighting the numbers, so to speak. But I think if you look at the temperature of Malawi and you look at those numbers, I think you find that they are realistic. APM has always had the same stronghold and somewhat similar numbers. And then you look at the MCP numbers. If you look at those numbers, 26% now. If you look at what MCP had, say, at the end when they were going into government there, together with the Tonse and Alliance and so forth, and the fact that they have dropped the numbers from MCP, that makes us a lot of sense. If you look at the temperature in the country, you will see that there has been a little bit of a negativity towards MCP. It might be because people are feeling a lot of hopes, a lot of promises that were supposed to be fulfilled haven't been fulfilled, or people are feeling that maybe the cost of living has gone up and so forth. So those factors have created for me a sort of negativity towards MCP, which is reflected in those numbers. And then of course you've got the others. But then again, it's a question of when, because I actually wrote an article about it, and I was suggesting that those numbers, they have stayed exactly the same for several surveys of Afrobarometer. And for me as a researcher, that already gave me a little bit of a worry. Why are these numbers not changing? For several surveys, there was one in September, and then there was another one, and then another one. You discovered that the numbers seem to be the same. And yet, during that period, we lost Saulos Chilima. There have been so many various dynamics that have happened, but you discover that the numbers remain the same. So for me, maybe if you want to question the numbers, that's the way to look at it and say maybe the numbers have not been as accurate as we would like because there's been all these other dynamics. But do not just question numbers. Say, no. My candidate is popular. Why are you giving him such a small popularity percentage? Which is what people do. They're arguing emotionally. Those numbers, for me, reflect the temperature of the country, and it is time for those are feeling that our numbers are not good enough. This is the time for them to raise them up. Yes.
So do you think it is very possible for the ones that are disadvantaged by by the outlook of that survey to work things out?
Absolutely. That's what a campaign should be
about. Can a miracle
about.
happen adjacent to the elections to turn things around?
To change those numbers?
Not to change those numbers, but to change the perspective of the very same people that the survey was conducted on.
Yes. If you were approached by someone and you have got a negative attitude about a girl, all right, and you're thinking, I can't go out with that girl, all right, okay, so that's your position at the first point of the survey. Yeah. But what if 2 days later I meet you and I tell you, that girl, she's this, she's that, and your attitude begins to change. You're thinking, really? I didn't know all that about that lady. And I'm saying, and this, that, and this. Oh, no, you're kidding. And suddenly you got an interest. So all I'm trying to tell you is it's possible. It's a question of what strategy you use, what information you give somebody for them to change their mind. Yeah.
Okay. Now let us shift to something a little bit different. Let us talk about Allan Ntata now. You're working. Me? Yes.
I am a boring subject.
No, you're not. I didn't mean that you were a boring subject. I wouldn't have bothered taking you on this podcast.
No. We can talk about those people at the elections.
No. I wanted to talk about your working relationship with the Mutharika siblings.
Yeah.
Bingu and his younger brother, APM.
Yeah.
You did work with the late Bingu Mutharika as his legal counsel. It was a very good working relationship.
I've worked with both of them.
You have worked with both of them?
Yeah.
But quite seems that there's bad blood between you and him.
There's no bad blood.
There's no bad blood?
No. None whatsoever. What I write, and I know you're saying this because of stuff that I write on social media, but that's not personal. I've got no personal grudge or anything about anyone in the let alone APM. I respect him immensely. I just think that, if I've got an activist subject, which is what I was doing, I was being an activist. And I have to do it in the honest way that an activist does, and that was the best way. But it's not personal. It's not personal at all.
Yes.
That's the problem. A lot of people now here, they think that when you're saying something, they try to second guess what your motive is. You see? And so they say, it must be because of that. It must be because of that and the other. No. I'm a professional, and I'm an activist. These days, I do anti-corruption activism, I do political activism, stuff that matter to me. So in this election, I thought the age of APM for me is not a good idea that he should be contesting. I decided to take up my activism hat, wear it, and start campaigning against this issue. And I thought I was very successful about it, by the way. Yes. Okay. Well, it's nothing personal. And those people that say that it's personal, it's this, that, and they're just guessing. It's nothing like that.
So you are still with the opinion that APM isn't fit to stand for
No, I don't think APM should be standing in this election. Do you?
I'll withhold my...
No, why? Opinion. Why should you withhold your opinion? No. Come on, you're a guy just like me.
Yes, I am a guy just like you.
Yeah.
But,
you're a free citizen.
Yeah, I'm a free citizen. But for the sake of, the independence of this podcast, I'm not giving you any opinion.
All right, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, I think his age for me, at that kind of advanced age, it would be a big mistake if we actually allow him to become president again.
Okay. Now, I wanted you to tell me your assessment of the running mates that have been chosen by APM, by LMC, by DK. Okay. In an event that one of these people have won an election, and then they are the presidents of this country. In a worst case scenario, we have the president incapacitated. Among the three running mates, who do you think, or who would you be comfortable as a citizen of this country to say, if something happens to the president, God forbid, this running mate would be in a very good position to be the president of this country?
What a question. I will answer this on a very flimsy basis because I don't have enough information on these running mates. I don't. All right. So because I don't, I stand to be corrected with regard to that particular question in terms of when I offer my opinion. My opinion is off the top of my head. It has not been properly researched. So please, I'll issue that disclaimer. However, I will try and answer it on this basis. One, I wouldn't approve of Dr. Answer as president of this country because as far as I'm concerned, her record at the Malawi Electoral Commission was quite dire. And I feel that to put her in a leadership position of being in charge of the country, if she couldn't handle the Malawi Electoral Commission in the right way, how can she handle the country? So for me, that's already a non-starter. And then I'll move on to the others. I'm not really, I don't know really the lady who the president of Ordiazake has picked. I don't know.
But perhaps maybe if you can just focus on the top three.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So Mr. Kabambe, Dr. Kabambe has picked.
Engineer.
No. Dr. Kabambe is that guy an engineer?
Yes, Matthews Mtumbuka.
Mtumbuka.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, him. All right. Is there another one who is a pastor or something?
Among the top three?
No, the Mtumbuka.
Tumbuka, that's a reverend.
They are. Oh, there's another one, yeah?
Yeah, but we are talking about Matthews and
Okay,
Tumbuka,
but no, I came to confuse them. That's why I was saying, But it's the engineer one,
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has picked an engineer who, has a very good record, I believe. And then in terms of, work or whatever, I don't know him that well. And then another...
Mumba picked by LMC.
Yeah, another engineer. So for me, the engineers would probably be a better idea, in my view. Just because, I'm just thinking, somebody who has done a degree in engineering, they have worked in that business and probably have also worked in the political space like Mumba, would have a little bit more experience, would have a little bit more, and he doesn't have, in my view, anything that I know of that has to look at his record and say, oh, what is that? Or Mtumbuka, the same thing. So for me, those two are probably my choice in terms of, from the question that you have put, because I don't think I see a difference between them.
Okay. Yeah, paliso nkhani ina Ntata nkhani imeneyi ndimafuna ndifunse nchichewa ndiziphatikiza. Nkhani tikankhula ndi Malawi awo. Tikankhula ndi Malawi. Tiziphatikiza nchichewa ndi chizungu. Nkhani it's very unfortunate that tikukamba nkhani iyi kuti Achilima is late now. Komano panali nkhani nake imene amamwalira Achilima, it remained unclear his candidacy for the presidency. Yes, anaseva matemu awiri ngati vice president. Ndikufunsa funso liza dala angakhale zinthu zinapita koma ndikuzowa kuti zizachitika so kuti muna vice president unako aseva matemu ake awiri ndikuzakhala ndi my interest or my ambitions kuti azayimire so president. I wanted your legal interpretation of that scenario. Was Dr. Chilima I don't know.
Chachitika nchone nakuti amuluzi 2009 ankafuna ulaime now third term yoti ayamba apuma. Okay, that was the idea because poyamba third term yokuti akhale third term, that's completely categorically denied in the constitution. So that's not on. You cannot have a president who runs these 5 terms and next 5 terms and then try to run again. That's not right. So Muluzi said, okay, I ran once, I had 2 terms, but there's been a gap. So because there's been a gap, it's not consecutive terms anymore. And then ufuna ndichite run again. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So this issue was in 2009.
Yes.
And then inapita ku court. Issue manager. Court somebody challenged his candidacy. I don't know whether it was Malawi Electoral Commission. I've forgotten who the parties were. Basically, the question was the legal question that was under dispute was this consecutive thing here. Does it bar somebody to do another one when it's not consecutive, when they skip a term? You see?
Yes,
This word consecutive. If it's not consecutive, it's allowed. That's what the Muluzi was arguing. You've got to take a consecutive.
Motsatanizana.
Yeah, Montrako Sangakale, Akozokala president, Gawili, Mozartizana. Bas. The Podobega Mozartizana, if you see what I'm saying. So that was the question. Now, the bingo of the government at the time was arguing, no, it's the 2 terms. Whether they are consecutive or not consecutive, common 2 terms. Consecutive simply means 1 term after the other, whether there's a gap or not. So that was the wrangle. And I'm going to that background because it's very important.
Yes, very important.
Chifukwa choti chimachina chilika njono ribwalo lina gamulo nino no ukakhakuruwa khala president kawiri, that's it. Okay? So Muluzi was barred forever. That's why he decided now to just sit there and observe. Okay? But a certain judge there went a little bit further and said, in fact, provision nakuti vice president and president yemwe, both of them should only serve twice, 2 terms. That's another judge in that ruling. And so everything that the judges say there is part of the ruling. So that means the problem of consecutive chanchanija yangwiranondani vice president is what. If these judges now, they have not just spoken about the provision with regard to the presidency. They have said these words also apply to the vice presidency. All right?
Yeah.
So that ruling there, yata. Can you imagine that? At that point, no vice president had ever served twice. So no, and can you But then Shirima comes. He serves with APM. He serves with Chakwera. And then suddenly people want him to run. So, but there's that ruling. But he has served 2 terms. That's it. You see? Komano. So that was the question. So if he was to run, if Ineo as a citizen or MCP or somebody want to stop him, they could have gone to the Malawi Electoral Commission and said, "Oyo Musambange now he's illegal." Or the Malawi Electoral Commission actually is under an obligation to stop him from running. Yeah. So if he went and took his papers to the Electoral Commission nomination, the Malawi Electoral Commission was supposed to turn him back because of that ruling. But it doesn't mean that the story ends there. What would have happened then would have been now that he goes to the court to challenge that ruling and say, no, that ruling was wrong. I want you to interpret it again because I didn't serve as president. I served only as vice president. And there are legal minds in the country that argue, and myself probably included, that ruling to say, once you serve as vice president twice, you can never become president. I think Penapage, we are missing a point, because if a guy has served as vice president twice, probably that's the best guy we want to be president. He has a lot of experience at that level. So you can look at it, in different ways. Sometimes we say, yeah, but you have served that in the office of the president, because the vice president is the office of the presidency. So you have already served there twice. So therefore, you shouldn't be near that anymore. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So for me, I feel that it is in the wind, but we need a solid position. So it's something that maybe the Constitution should look at and clarify. At the moment, as it stands, Chirima would have been turned back, and then there would have been a rigorango to try and clarify this issue, which could have advantaged anybody who didn't want Chirima to run.
Ntata, ndimafuwa tikambirane koso nkhani ina ya malamulo, palika section kenaka m'buku la za malamuloka, the Constitution of the Republic of Malawi. You are a lawyer. You have a very good interpretation of that, but I'll just take an excerpt of that provision. Section 80, subsection 7A, and it reads, of the Constitution stipulates that no person adjudged or declared to be of unsound mind may ascend to the presidency. The operative words are adjudged and declared. So we have recently seen concerns raised about Professor Mutharika's health, reports of perhaps incontinence in an event where he ascends to power. are those not the signs of incapacity? I'm speaking as a layperson. I want you to give us a legal interpretation of that provision and from whatever people are discussing about APM, because we are speaking about a person that if he wins is going to become the state president of this
Yes,
country.
yeah, it's a difficult one because we haven't defined the term. There are those operative terms that you've picked out correctly there.
Yeah.
Adjudged, who is to be the one that will do the adjudging? That's the first point because it says no person declared by whom. Okay, doctor. Which doctor? Okay, so already we have a problem there, and then of unsound mind. What does that phrase really mean? Is unsound mind incapacitation? Is it only of the mind? If can a person who is paralyzed everywhere else, but the brain is working, still become president? These are questions that we must, because it's talking about the unsound mind. So, if my legs are not working, my hands are gone, but my brain is good, then people will be able to tell me, oh, Mr. President, sir, do you want to sign? Yeah, tell my assistant to sign. You see, so, these are issues which you have to think about. And to me, this is one of the challenges that I always speak about, and I flagged to you earlier on that I'll be speaking, be mentioning my book, which is about to come out. It's called The Power of Two, and in that book I discuss that particular point as well, which is that one of the challenges that Malawi has is that our constitution is incomplete. It is a constitution that was put together very, very quickly and seen and found to have a lot of flaws by the very experts that examined afterwards, all right? And the problems, we see them until today, all right? Now, let me give you one of the examples that I gave in my book. When I first started working for Bingu Mtarika, I had a very good relationship with Justice Anthony Kamanga. He wasn't a judge then. He was the chairman. He was the top guy at the Law Commission. All right. So he because we were friends, he called me and said, Allan, you see this? I said, yeah, what's that? He said, that's the constitution of Malawi revised to remove all the flaws that were created in the 1994 constitution. All right. This was 2009. All right. So from 1994 to 2004, that's 10 years of operating on a bad constitution. Right. Now, in that period, that's when this work was done, because they saw things like crossing the floor creating problems. They saw things like maybe a need for a Senate, which had been taken out, and all those sort of issues. And then some issues that are happening now, the vice presidency, for example, a very, very crucial office, which is completely useless because the constitution doesn't give it any use, and things like that. And so this constitution was sitting there. It has been revised by the Law Commission. They have done a review of what the Malawians want. It's sitting there. So I said, why is this not operation? He said, well, during the Muluzi years, we tried to get him to take this to Parliament, and he refused. He said it limits his power. So now you are working for Bingu. He has been in power from 2004. This is 2009. He has plenty of power now. He had won a landslide election then. So he had the clout to move and change the constitution in Parliament, because when you are trying to put in amendments in a constitution, you need a majority in Parliament. So Bingu had it. All right. So Kamanga is telling me, go and discuss with the president so we can have this constitution, because it is going to remove a whole lot of problems that we have with our constitutions, including Section 80. You see what I mean?
Yes. Okay.
So I haven't finished. So I go to Bingu. I said to him, okay, sir, here is a Law Commission request. Can we do this? Bingu read the thing and he said, I'm not going to push this to Parliament because it limits my power. Nobody wants a new constitution. That's the point I'm trying to tell you. All right? So these flaws that you are highlighting, they are not the only ones. Our constitution is a document that was put together in a hurry. Malawi has told me, this is Justin Malawi is the former vice president. See, I've been fortunate that I have worked and had very intimate conversations about this country with some of the really, really people that know what happens in this country. So I'm telling you now, Malawi has told me that At the Constitutional Conference in 1994, people were pointing out those problems, but the interest was not that. The interest was, let's take power away from Kamuzu. That was all. The institutionalization of this power and trying to control it, that was not in the interest of the people that were at the Constitutional Conference. They were all politicians, you see? So that provision falls in that category, and it is a problematic provision. Now let's go back to APM. For me, the power to look at that provision and say we think APM shouldn't run, should be with the Malawi Electoral Commission. They are the ones that accept nomination papers. They are the ones that should look at the constitution and say, are we safeguarding the Malawian people and this constitution if we allow someone who is clearly looking ill to be running on this election? This is a very, very simple question. Why don't we ask a medical opinion? Why don't we ask a legal opinion as to how we should go about dismantling this phrase of adjudged and declared by whom and so forth? That's the job of the Malawi Commission. If they want to do their job and really safeguard the electoral process, that's one of the things that they should be doing, safeguarding who is actually allowed to vote, to be voted in. If we end up putting a dog, what are they going to say? Oh, the dogs, they're not in the constitution, so therefore, let's just go and just vote for the dog. You see what I'm saying? No, the job is to look at the constitution, look at what's going on, and say, no, this is not right. Let's see if we can find a legal way of addressing this. That's what these institutions are there for. But our problem is, I've already said, our problem as a country is that instead of following the footsteps of the frameworks, we always use emotions and things. So we just talk and talk and talk, but nobody wants to address the things at the base.
Okay. So in a certain interview with one of media houses in Malawi, Professor Arthur Mutharika admittedly said that there's no perfect government, and he was actually saying that angakhale kukwera kwa zinthu kwa mitengoku, it was inevitable. Amanena kuti mitengo imanka naikwera. So having the situation that we are now as a country, and having one of the opponents of the current government, that's Professor Arthur Mutharika, admitting that indeed there's no such a thing as a perfect government, what do you think could have been good policies to be implemented by the current government to cushion the people from whatever it is that they're experiencing now due to external factors that have affected the climate of economy in this country?
Yeah, you see, the problem with that question is it presupposes that I know what the challenges of the government have been that have caused the problems, you see, and then I'm offering solutions to that, which I don't. So it's very, very difficult to answer that because, we all see that the economy is not going well, but we don't know why, because the government hasn't told us, and some of us are not economists. So, maybe we should turn to Kabambe. Maybe he's going to tell us, but he doesn't. He's a politician. All he's saying is vote for me because that, and the other. And so we go to some other economists and say, what are you going to say about it? No, I was in the same government, but this, that, and so people are not telling us what is the problem. So it's very, very difficult for some of us to say, okay, maybe you could try this policy or that policy and the other. First of all, what is creating the economic problems? Now, I was listening to some of the ministers saying, the forex is because of the black market and all this sort of thing and so forth. But if they know the problem, what are they doing to solve it? That's the question. And then the other problems that we have are I think from now Peter Mutharika's statement you can understand, because our problems are chronic. They are serious problems that we have allowed to metastasize in this country ever since. Things like lack of exports, for example. This country was founded as a country that should have been exporting raw materials and agricultural products and so forth. Hastings Kamuzubanda did it. He put together systems that were doing that. ADMAC, and so forth, exporting stuff. The economy was strong. These things have all been grazed down by various governments, and so they need to be rebuilt and so forth. So the Malawi problem is not something that you look at it simply from a perspective of one administration. It's not. That's what Peter Mutharika is talking about. It's a very, very big problem that requires a collective effort, not just even from the politicians alone. It requires all of us to understand what needs to be done for this country to move. Because when you look at the foundations that Kamuzubanda laid, all of them are gone today. You see, and what are the politicians today doing to ensure that we return to those things? Nobody gives us any policy as to, oh, I'm going to rebuild Admark like this, and I'm going to rebuild Madeko fisheries like that, and things like that. Things that used to do the kind of stuff that creates a growth in a country. Nobody is doing those things today. So for me, I think what I want to see are politicians that are saying those things. This whole thing, oh, no government is perfect. Let's just trying to say, oh, vote for me because I'm not going to be any better than the guys that are there. That's basically what he's saying, and that's useless. And then people think, oh yeah, okay, speaking very wise words because it's true. But the point is, you can't be a better government than the other one by implementing the right policies. Yeah.
Now, you being someone that has ever been close to the highest power of the land and being advisor to the president, particularly the late Bingu Mutharika, and I know you have advised several presidents preceding Bingu wa Mutharika. There's this thing that Malawians say that people that surround our presidents actually mislead the president. There's an issue to do with antumwagulisa ntchito tipping
President.
President. A very serious thing. And of course, for the sake of balance, recently ndajagweraso nthanake panali nkhani ya Bridging Foundation, of which it never came into effect. Kodi chimavuta nchani ndi anthu amene amuzungulira president? Inzotheka ndi kuti president can be misled, having all the powers given to him by the constitution. Is it possible?
Okay, you are tackling a very sensitive question. I'll have to discuss it at length, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We have time?
Do so, like in 2 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah, okay. Yeah, you see, basically, the president is supposed to make the final decision on any issue. All right. So basically, if you're an advisor like me, when I was working as an advisor to the president, he would seek advice through, for example, a memo. All right. So you send him, say for example, you send him a letter to say, oh, Mr. President, if we have got this issue going, we need the presidency to intervene. So the president, when he sees the issue, and that's why you have different advisors, because when he sees the issue, he tries to think, okay, this is a political matter. Let me send it to my political advisor to weigh in on this. All right? If it's a financial matter, then he has his minister. In fact, the president's chief advisors, if you look in the constitution, the chief advisors to the president are the cabinet. All right? Those are the first people that he should actually seek advice from. But power doesn't work that way. All right? The way power works is loyalty, to power is seen as something that should be rewarded. All right? So you find that when people rise and become presidents, they have been helped by various people. All right. Now, these people that have been helped by these people, that have been helping the president, are not politicians in the mainstream. You see? So, for example, I could be helping a campaign. Like, for example, when Chilima was campaigning around the Tonse Alliance time, I was one of his advisors. You see? But nobody knew. I was advising him, we were talking, and so forth and so on. But nobody knew that. Now, but he had the politicians, the Kariatis, the Hums, the Makondis, and so forth. Those are the politicians. Those are the people that you see. All right? Now, when you go into governing now, you have won. All right? These people that were helping you, that people don't know, you want them nearby as well. All right? And the problem comes now when you feel you owe them. Because then it is difficult for you to discipline them because you think you owe them. You see what I mean? And so when they come with their advice, you think you have to take it. Because otherwise, they'll think you are not valuing the friendship, the loyalty, because these are the people that made you become president. You see? So if they're giving you bad advice now, how can they give you bad advice now when they made you president? You see? So you think that you always have to take what they say. And it takes a very discerning president to realize that, no, now that I'm president, I think this is the kind of advice I want. This, no. This one, no. But otherwise, if you just start listening to everything simply because people, these are people that were helping you during the campaign, that's what you see. You see that a lot of people around the president now that come, the president, they convince the president that he cannot function without this team. And the president begins to believe it. You see? So this is what creates the problem, because these people, most of the time, their agenda is not the president. The president wants to serve these people. It's a job. That's it. So when I was there, I was advising. I discovered that if you try and advise honestly, you go against these people. You see? So you are thrown out because these people have got an agenda. And it has nothing to do with what the president knows. So when you start telling the president, this is the way, but Mr. So-and-so is telling me this, forego the advice of so-so, it's not going to help you. This is where you should go. When Mr. So-so knows that you went and told the president that he shouldn't take that, you are gone. So these are the dynamics that work around that place. And a lot of people think, oh, he's being misled. He's being misled. Yes, he might be misled, but the reason he's being misled is he has given up this idea. He has given in to this idea of loyalty. It's wrongly placed. Because if you are a leader, loyalty sometimes means telling somebody that I'm not going to do that. I need to do this, that. And a lot of leaders, their challenge is to tell their closest friends, because these people become friends, that I cannot do that. I go deeper. I'm not going to say more. I go deep about this particular question because I give very, very credible examples of things that I experienced when I was working both with Peter Mutharika and with Bingo. You see? Because for just to give you a tip, in one occasion, I wrote Peter Mutharika a brief when he had just taken the government in 2014. I wrote him a brief and said, Bwana, watch the people that are around, because at that time I wasn't here, I was in the UK. But I had helped that campaign, and they knew it. So when I came here, when Peter Mutharika had won, he was saying to me, oh, what are you going to help us? I said, no, I am on a project, but this is what I would like for you to implement, because your brother, this is why he lost popularity. That's what I told him. That being when he was dying, he had lost popularity, and these are the reasons. In AM research, I'm telling you. So address these, you'll become more popular. You see? And I gave him. When I gave him that, he took it to those people. And my enemy, you're talking about me and the DPP and so forth, and bad blood. If there is any bad blood, it is because these people saw that document. But it was not Peter Mutharika. I didn't have anything to do with Peter Mutharika. You see? But they saw that document, and they knew I was the one who had written it. And I was recommending changes that would have meant their gravy train was gone. You pay for these things, man.
So, Ntata, on a lighter note, you did mention somewhere in our discussion that you are writing a book.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and how it relates to the
Okay,
the people of Malawi.
I decided to write a book about Africa in general, but using Malawi as a case study. So what I'm writing is really a manifesto for Africa. I am saying that we have failed. Democracy has failed in Africa because we have put too much emphasis on leadership, on a person, on an individual. But an individual without a framework is a recipe for disaster. That's the thesis of my book. And so I give examples and why. And I'm going to give a very, very important point at the end for this election. So just stay with me. So the second point I'm making, I'm saying the power of two. I'm saying what we need as Africa and Malawi specifically is strong institutions that cannot be manipulated by the politics, but also good leadership. So good leadership, what is good leadership? And I try to define what good leadership is, and this is the point I was going to get to at the end. If you are a voter today, what is a good leader for you? This is a question that you must ask yourself today. If you are a voter, I know who my good leader is. But if I tell you that my good leader is so and so, you'll be thinking, why? Principles are what is important. So, a good leader for Africa today, besides the institutions. Now, I've told you that I'm saying the power of two. A good leader is someone who will tell you that bind me to institutions. That's a good leader. Because institutions do not see the face. Institutions do not see the tribe. Institutions do not care whether you are rich or poor. If you go there to make a passport, you make a passport. If you, and so forth, you pay whatever is supposed to be paid and so on. That's what we talk about when we speak about strong institutions that do not have any manipulation of this kind. But that, for that to happen, you need a good leader. And a good leader is one who comes to you and says, "Ineyo mukandivotera, ndionetsetsone noti by in 1 year, ndikadzapa ndopanga zimene ndopanga, one, I will make sure that our institutions are good. I will make sure that this is specifically what I'm going to do to ensure that those institutions are good and they can control me. And if they can't do it, you need to go into the streets and throw me out." That's a good leader. To me, I want a leader who can stand on a podium and say that. Chifukwa chokuti panopo we have failed. We got leaders who make promises and fail. But the reason why they fail sometimes is not them. It's because the system is bad. So we need a leader now who will come to create institutions. That's where we start. You see what I mean? Someone who come and implement that constitution, someone who come and say, "Ababa president, so cut out this, cut out that, give some of these powers to the vice president." Because that's what other countries do. You don't hear Prime Minister of Britain calling the BBC and telling them, "Why are you putting that story on the on radio or on TV?" Never. Never, it can never. If that's a scandal, the guy will lose his job. Why? If the Prime Minister did that, he would lose his job. Why? He would lose his job because the institutions are strong enough to control him from doing that. I was working with Joyce Banda. Joyce Banda used to call the reporter in a new one. She called the reporter because she's watching the news and she's unhappy with something that the reporter has said or something. She calls the reporter, the actual reporter. Not the chief of news, not the head of programs, not the CEO of MBC, not the minister of information. She calls the junior reporter, the poor reporter. "Madam Vice President," she was vice president at the time. You see, because institutions cannot control that kind of power. What makes the president think she can just call a reporter? Or the CEO of Standard Bank and tell me, "I want Forex there." You see what I'm trying to tell you? So institutions are at the heart, but we need a leader who can make them tick. So the power of two, in the book that you have asked me about, I am putting together that proposal. I'm saying, if we can do the following, maybe Africa will rise.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, Allan Ntata, I want you to speak to Malawians that are constituting that 7.2 million registered voters, the ones that are queuing to vote on the 16th of September. I want you to speak to them on how they can safeguard their vote in these elections. What would you tell them, actually?
I think I've already said much of it. I think that for me, I wouldn't want to vote if I don't get a candidate that I want. And the way to do that is to probably create your candidate or demand that your candidate do the things that you want them to do for you to vote for them. So now it might be maybe too late to do that. I don't know. But for me, I want Malawians to start asking a little bit more from their candidates. Their vote is the only thing that they have, the only currency that they can use to change this country. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's a very, very precious thing, but we are using it willy-nilly. We think it is something to buy 50 kwaja with, or 500 kwaja, or whatever these days, what people are buying votes for. We think that a vote is something that you should use in order to get leverage, to get a job, to get a deal, in procurement or something like that. No, a vote is supposed to be used to change a country. And when you think about your vote, you think, how is this vote going to that guy going to change my country? Okay? Mm-hmm. Is that guy going to change my country? That one? What has he told me that has convinced me that he's going to do it? All right? If, of course, he hasn't, and if nobody has told you that, you have the right to cancel the vote. Malawians can decide that we don't want to vote until we have the right candidate. This is fine. We can protest. If we don't have the right candidate, we don't have to vote. You see? But maybe there is a right candidate, but you need to justify that. So personally, I'm thinking my candidate is probably there that don't just go and vote simply because he comes from your village. No, a vote is precious.
Zed, Allan Ntata, it's been a pleasure hosting you.
It has been a pleasure being here. I feel like I've just started. Thank you very much.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. That's how we have concluded our episode today from Face2Face Podcast. My name is Victor Dafres. I had a very interesting chat with a renowned legal mind in the person of Zed Allan Ntata. We have talked about many issues ranging from Smartmatic, the demand for the resignation of MEX chairperson, Justice Anabe Ontalimanja, and of course, Chief Elections Officer Andrew Mpesi. Up until next time, it's bye-bye.